Yeah, well, if I can have your seat, we can get together. Before we get going with questions, let me make 4 short announcements. Announcement number 1, on April 12th and 13th, the President will host the Nuclear Security Summit at the Washington Convention Center, obviously here in Washington, D.C. The purpose of the summit is to discuss steps we can collectively take to secure vulnerable nuclear materials and prevent acts of nuclear terrorism. As the President stated in Prague in April 2009, nuclear terrorism is the most immediate and extreme threat to global security. A little bit later on this afternoon, our 3rd release of visitor records will be made public. At that point, we'll have released the names of over 150,000 visitors to the White House complex. Those will cover official events between November 1st and November 30th of 2009. Earlier this morning, the President had a secure video teleconference with British Prime Minister Gordon Brown and German Chancellor Angela Merkel. The President and his counterparts discussed non-proliferation, Afghanistan, terrorism, current economic and trade issues, as well as the upcoming nuclear security summit. And lastly, let's just go through a few of the few days for the week ahead. The President has no public events tomorrow. On Sunday, the President will travel to the National Naval Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland, where he will undergo a routine physical. Afterwards, he will visit with wounded warriors who are getting treatment at the same facility. Just a quick coverage note on that. If you are in the pool that day, please see Katie and Ben. It will be a very early movement on Sunday morning. We will have a readout from the doctor sometime, hopefully early to mid-afternoon, about the routine physical. Sorry? We'll disperse it from here. On Monday, the President will announce new steps in his administration's effort to improve our nation's schools at an America's Promise Alliance education event hosted by Alliance founding chairman General Colin Powell and his wife Alma. America's Promise Alliance is the nation's largest partnership organization dedicated to improving the lives of children and youth. As previously announced on Tuesday, the President will travel to Savannah, Georgia. And the only guidance I have for Wednesday through Friday right now is attending meetings here at the White House. So with those 4 announcements, Mr. Fowler.
Thanks, Robert. A few follow-up on healthcare. Now that the summit's over, can you be direct about this point? Will the President support the use of reconciliation to get a healthcare bill through if a bipartisan deal can't be reached?
Well, Ben, look, the President found yesterday's meeting and conversation to be productive. I think certainly there were points throughout the nearly 7 hours, including the lunch break, in that time that there were areas of common agreement and common interest on an issue that we know is important to the American people. No doubt there were differences. I think one of the primary differences appeared to be the treatment of insurance companies and the regulating of insurance companies. And in all honesty, those differences may just be between the President and some members of Congress too big. The President's going to take the areas that there was some common agreement on and work through those ideas and those issues, and will likely make an announcement next week about the next steps forward.
Announcement next week. Okay. So
what were the areas?
I would say primarily at the beginning, Helen, there was a lot of head nodding and agreement on Dr. Coburn, his discussion of waste, fraud, and abuse in the medical system. Many of those ideas have been incorporated into the President's plan. There was some agreement also on a proposal that Senator Coburn and Senator Burr have worked on regarding defensive medicine and medical malpractice, including increasing grants to states to set up ways to help that problem. I think there was some general agreement on the selling of insurance across state lines. Obviously, the differences that I talked about earlier still include a minimum floor for standards to ensure that if you're purchasing a policy in a different state, you enjoy, as I said, a minimum level of standard coverage. So I think certainly those are the main areas yesterday where there seemed to be some agreement.
Can you clarify on the time frame? The president said yesterday that he hopes to resolve something in a month, a few weeks, or 6 weeks. But you just talked about an announcement next week. So
I think the president will again take into account what he heard yesterday, work through with the team some ideas, and make an announcement next week about the way forward. I don't have a ton to add to that, Ben, except I think the president sees. Well, let me not get ahead of where the president might make an announcement.
But you still can't speak to the point about whether he would support reconciliation
Well,
today.
I think that those questions are better left for when we have an announcement from the president on the way forward.
Monday or Tuesday or later?
My sense is probably closer to Wednesday.
And is the president?
Don't hold me to it could be earlier or later than that. Yep.
Sorry, is the president or anyone else at this point reaching out from the White House, reaching out to Democrats who might be on the fence or unsure about how to move forward? Is that
Well,
going to happen?
look, I have not talked to, I have not asked Nancy Ann this, but I think Nancy Ann in particular was going to follow up with Democrats and Republicans on some of the ideas and the notions that they heard yesterday. Yes, ma'am.
Democrats are talking about an Easter break deadline for getting a bill done. Does that sound reasonable to the president?
Look, the president's been working on this issue for months, more than a year. So obviously, his desire is to see something that improves the lives of the American people soon. I don't again want to get ahead of what the president might announce next week in terms of the way forward.
He urged Republicans to do some soul searching and said to do that over the coming weeks.
Right.
Does that mean he's willing to give them several weeks to do that soul searching before moving ahead with something like reconciliation?
Well, look, I would say first and foremost, we've had many weeks with which to contemplate where we are. I think where people are was fleshed out somewhat clearly yesterday over the course of many hours. Again, I think the president will be looking at ideas that were offered up yesterday that he agrees with, where there's common agreement on moving forward on them. So, look, I think this is a fairly dynamic process that will happen over the next several days.
And just following up on how you described yesterday, you said it was a productive session.
Mm-hmm.
Was it as productive as the president hoped?
Would the president like to have come out of there with a larger agreement? Sure. Again, I think while there appeared to be some agreement on the issues that I outlined a minute ago, there appear to be some philosophical issues on. I think the main one seemed to be on the degree to which we're going to regulate insurance companies, whether it's for the policies that. For a standard level of benefit in a policy, whether or not we're going to have the rate authority to ensure that people don't see huge swings upward in the price that insurance companies are charging individuals in the market as we move toward a health insurance exchange, whether or not dealing with pre-existing conditions in its entirety was something that people, albeit wanted to do, could do.
But what tangibly changed between Wednesday and Thursday?
Well, again, I think the American people saw some agreement, as I said, on issues that, in which there's just been, in many ways, back and forth screaming over the past many months. I think it was, in that way, a productive session to sort of cut through this and figure out where there's some common ideas